The business of professional sports is an apex predator environment. It is a hyper-capitalist, cold-blooded arena where leverage is the only currency that matters, and mercy does not exist. You do not get paid based on your historical grievances. You do not get paid based on your progressive social ideologies. You get paid based on one absolute, undeniable metric: your ability to generate revenue. If you hold the cards, you can dictate the terms of the empire. But if you walk into a boardroom with a pair of twos, look a syndicate of billionaires directly in the eye, and threaten to burn their building to the ground, they will not panic. They will simply lock the doors, change the locks, and watch you completely destroy your own career from the outside. What we are witnessing right now in the Women's National Basketball Association is not a labor negotiation. It is a live broadcast, slow-motion corporate suicide. For the past 12 months, the militant veteran leadership of the WNBA Players Association has been operating under a terrifyingly delusional assumption. They genuinely believed they were untouchable. They looked at the unprecedented, multi-billion-dollar explosion of the sports economy, an explosion generated entirely by the arrival of a 24-year-old rookie point guard, and they arrogantly convinced themselves that the American public was suddenly loyal to the veteran establishment. They thought they possessed the ultimate leverage. They thought they could hold the 2026 season hostage, demand structurally impossible 50% revenue splits, demand fully guaranteed maximum contracts, and extort the billionaire ownership class into submission. But today is March 10th. The doomsday clock has officially struck zero. Adam Silver's drop-dead deadline has arrived, and the ultimate devastating reality has finally shattered the union's fragile illusion. The billionaires called their bluff.
It's the day of the deadline, the doomsday day for the WNBA CBA negotiations, and we have been covering this relentlessly for over 6 months now, and it's exhausting. And here we are, it's 4:33 p.m. Central Time on March 10th, and we don't know what's going on. We don't know if a deal is going to get done. Now, the latest news that we have is that the players and the owners, they swapped proposals over the weekend, but they didn't disclose any details about those proposals. Now,
listen to the sheer, deafening silence of a failing organization. For 6 months, the WNBA Players Association operated like a leaky sieve. They weaponized the media, they aggressively leaked contract details, postured in the press, and treated the collective bargaining agreement like a toxic reality television show. They wanted the public to debate every fractional percentage of their demands. They wanted the fans to feel sorry for them. But the moment the March 10th deadline arrived, the union leadership suddenly went dark. They stopped releasing details. They stopped the public banter. Why? Because they finally realized they are losing. When a labor union goes completely silent at the 11th hour, it is not a sign of a strategic masterstroke. It is a sign of absolute unmitigated internal panic. They stopped leaking the proposals because the proposals exposed the brutal truth. The owners have drawn a hard line in the sand, and the union has absolutely no countermove left. The WNBPA leadership, Terry Carmichael Jackson and Nneka Ogwumike, drove their own members straight to the edge of an economic cliff, completely blind to the fact that the consumers they desperately needed for leverage had already abandoned them. This brings us to the most fatal, catastrophic miscalculation the veteran establishment made during this entire process. They completely destroyed their own public goodwill.
As the public support, because I feel like there was a point in time when a lot of the public, or the majority of the public, was on the side of the players. However, because we've just known so much about all of this, I think a lot of people have flipped to the side of supporting the league a little bit more. And that's not to say that the fans don't want to see the WNBA players get paid well and be taken care of and be treated like professional athletes, but I think we've just, like I said, I'm not going to say it over and over, we've heard too much, okay? We've heard too much, but all—
The pendulum has swung. Those 4 words represent the death knell of a labor union. In any corporate strike, public sentiment is your only protective shield. If the fans blame the billionaires for canceling the season, the owners will eventually cave to protect their global brand equity. But if the fans blame the players, the owners hold absolute unchecked power. They can simply wait you out until you starve. The militant veterans of the WNBA completely alienated their new, rapidly expanding fan base, the working-class American consumer, the person grinding through a 40-hour work week just to pay their mortgage. Listen to veteran WNBA players complaining about a massive, unprecedented salary cap increase. They watched athletes who are about to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars publicly whine about not getting their luxury apartments paid for by the league. They watched the veteran establishment launch bad faith racial investigations, alienate the new audience, and constantly play the victim. The entitlement became utterly suffocating. The public looked at the historic, life-changing financial offers the owners were placing on the table, and they realized the union was holding out of pure, unadulterated greed and unchecked veteran ego. The fans are exhausted. They are tired of the whining. They are tired of the manufactured drama. The public has officially sided with the league, completely stripping the union of its only weapon. And without public pressure, the sheer staggering incompetence of the union's actual negotiating strategy has been completely exposed.
Any sense of urgency when they didn't reply for 6 weeks over the holiday break or whatever, when they weren't getting back with a proposal. But why are we now literally at the 11th hour and they're just now meeting in person? And it's ironic too, because obviously, Team USA basketball is preparing for their FIBA World Qualifier games or whatever they are. Honestly, these games, like, I know everybody's excited just to see basketball because we've been only talking about the CBA.
Pause and analyze the absolute absurdity of this corporate timeline. It is the final, non-negotiable deadline. If a deal is not reached today, the 2026 season is officially delayed and the fragile financial infrastructure of the WNBA instantly begins to collapse. And the union leadership and the owners are just now meeting in person at 4:30 in the afternoon. This is not a display of high-stakes, dramatic corporate negotiating. It is a display of gross, catastrophic negligence. The union leadership had an entire off-season to finalize this historic deal, but they stalled. They played petty games. They waited 6 excruciating weeks to respond to league proposals, artificially compressing the timeline to create a false sense of panic. They allowed their own executive committee members to miss critical in-person meetings. They treated a multi-billion-dollar corporate negotiation like a high school debate club, assuming that the owners were desperate and would eventually come crawling back with a blank check. They fundamentally failed to realize who they were dealing with. The billionaire class does not operate with a sense of urgency unless their core revenue streams are threatened. And the core revenue stream of the WNBA owners is not the WNBA, it is the National Basketball Association. The billionaires are entirely perfectly insulated. They subsidize the WNBA's massive financial losses for 25 consecutive years without breaking a sweat. If the union forces a lockout, the owners will simply lock the gymnasium doors, cut off the players' salaries and health insurance, write off the temporary loss on their corporate taxes, and focus entirely on the massive billions of dollars profit margin of the NBA playoffs. The union executives played a game of chicken with a brick wall, and they just destroyed their own vehicle. And right in the middle of this chaotic, disorganized corporate failure, the actual face of the sport, the only reason the WNBA is even in a position to negotiate a $2 billion media deal, casually exposed the sheer absurdity of the veteran leadership's position. Caitlin Clark, the ultimate target of the veteran establishment's deep-seated resentment, stepped in front of the microphones and completely isolated the militant wing of the union.
Who has been more vocal than she ever has been throughout these CBA negotiations is Caitlin Clark. I'll just read this quick quote from her here. She said, "There is a time crunch and things do need to be solved. It is our responsibility to get something done for not only all of us, the players that are older in this league, the players that are younger in this league, but the generation of hoopers, but the next generation of hoopers, excuse me. We don't want to lose what we have right now. That's my main focus, and I look forward to playing on April 25th in New York City, my first."
Listen to the profound, untouchable corporate maturity in her statement. While the militant veterans of the WNBPA are throwing a temper tantrum, leaking passive-aggressive letters, and threatening to burn the season down over fractional revenue percentages, the 24-year-old point guard is acting like a seasoned Fortune 500 CEO. It is our responsibility to get something done. We don't want to lose what we have right now. Clark understands the fundamental, unforgiving reality of the sports business. She understands that the unprecedented momentum the WNBA currently possesses is extremely fragile. She knows that the attention economy is a fickle beast, and if you alienate the consumer, if you cancel games, if you force the fans to look away, you will permanently lose the magic that took decades to build. She explicitly states that her main focus is playing in her first preseason game in April. She wants to be on the court. She wants to capitalize on the massive global audience she personally delivered to the league. By taking this exact public stance, Clark has actively, brilliantly destroyed the union's leverage. She is signaling directly to the corporate sponsors, the television networks, and the billionaire owners that she does not support a catastrophic lockout. She is proving that she is the rational, dedicated, hyper-professional investment, while the veteran establishment looks like a bitter, jealous cartel willing to destroy their own sport simply to prove they are in control. This brings us to the explosive, undeniable theory surrounding this entire disaster. A theory the mainstream sports media is absolutely terrified to report. The militant veterans driving the WNBPA are not intentionally pushing the league past the deadline to secure better wages for the working-class player. Over 80% of the league is currently unemployed, begging for a deal so they can sign contracts and pay their rent. The veteran establishment is intentionally pushing for a lockout because it is the final, desperate weapon they possess to halt the unstoppable momentum of Caitlin Clark. Think about the twisted, envious psychology of the old guard. For decades, they ruled a tiny, culturally insulated, unprofitable kingdom. They dictated the locker room hierarchy. They demanded unquestioning respect from rookies. They controlled the media narratives. Then Caitlin Clark arrived from Iowa. She shattered their viewership records. She brought in millions of new fans who did not care about the unwritten rules of the old guard. She secured multi-million-dollar endorsements. She instantly rendered the entire veteran establishment culturally and economically irrelevant. The veteran leadership fundamentally despises her for this. They resent her unprecedented popularity. They resent the fact that they spent 20 years building the foundation only for a rookie to walk in and buy the entire house. And they are absolutely terrified of what happens when she returns for her second season, fully healthy, fully rested, completely adapted to the professional game, and ready to dominate the league entirely on her own terms. If the union forces a strike, they steal a year of Clark's athletic prime. They temporarily silence the noise. They punish the new fans for not worshiping the legacy players. They are entirely willing to trigger a catastrophic financial apocalypse, burn the $2 billion media deal to the ground, and destroy the livelihoods of their own working-class union members, simply to prove to the world that they still control the levers of power. It is weaponized envy. It is scorched earth economics. But their spiteful, ego-driven strategy is about to trigger a corporate apocalypse that they are completely, totally unprepared for. The WNBA union actually believes that if they cancel the season, the sports world will stop turning. They believe that the American public will sit in silent protest, holding their breath, demanding that the owners cave to their demands. They genuinely believe they are indispensable. They are about to learn the most brutal, devastating lesson in the history of entertainment economics. The reality of consumer substitution.
Oh, if everybody just thought they had an infinite amount of time, and as long as they got the CBA done before the first season game, that they would be fine. But that part of it all has been a little bizarre to me. And honestly, like I'm kind of disinterested now. Like March 10th is here. Like if they get it done, amazing. Hopefully we can just celebrate the win and move forward and actually start covering basketball. But I will say, if this continues on, like I'm not going to cover it in the kind of detail that I've been covering it in the past, because it's honestly just not worth my time. We've been doing this so.
The sports fan does not owe you their loyalty. The sports fan does not owe you their time. The sports fan does not owe you their money. If you refuse to put your product on the floor, the consumer will simply find a new product, and they will not look back. This is the fatal, irreversible miscalculation made by the WNBA union. They are threatening to lock out during one of the most crowded, highly competitive, and lucrative periods on the entire global sports calendar. If the WNBA players refuse to step onto the court in May, the television networks will not broadcast static. They will not air sympathetic documentaries about the players' labor struggle. They will simply pivot their billions of dollars of advertising revenue. They will pivot to the absolute juggernaut of the NBA playoffs. They will pivot to the cultural phenomenon of March Madness. They will pivot to the World Baseball Classic. They will pivot to the massive global spectacle of international soccer. The American sports consumer has an infinite menu of high-level, elite athletic entertainment. The WNBA was just barely beginning to carve out a massive piece of that market, entirely on the back of Caitlin Clark. And instead of cementing that position, instead of taking the historic financial victory currently sitting on the table, the veteran union leadership decided to hold the consumer hostage. The consumer's response is absolute, unforgiving apathy. The public is exhausted. The fans are turning off the notifications. They are unfollowing the drama. They are simply moving on with their lives. And when the fans move on, the leverage completely, permanently evaporates. Adam Silver, Kathy Engelbert, and the billionaire owners know exactly what is happening. They are watching the union completely destroy its own public goodwill. They are watching the fans declare that they no longer care if the WNBA plays its season or not. And because the owners know the public has stopped caring, the owners have absolutely zero incentive to concede a single, fractional inch to the union's demands. The owners will slide a final, brutal, non-negotiable offer across the boardroom table. They will demand absolute capitulation from the union. They will demand extreme exclusivity clauses to prevent the players from ever forming another competing league like Unrivaled. And if the militant veterans refuse to sign it, the owners will simply lock the gymnasium doors, cut the players off from their paychecks and their health insurance, and focus entirely on the massive profits of the NBA postseason. And what happens to Caitlin Clark if the WNBA season burns? Absolutely nothing. She will simply transition her massive, fiercely loyal audience directly to the FIBA World Cup qualifiers. She will dominate the international stage on TNT Sports. She will cash her 8-figure endorsement checks, perfectly insulated from the financial devastation of a WNBA lockout. The veteran leadership of the WNBA played a high-stakes game of corporate extortion against billionaires, driven by their own petty jealousy, and they just realized, at the 11th hour, that they were holding an empty hand. They gambled the greatest financial opportunity in the history of women's sports on a bluff, and the free market just annihilated them. I want to hear from you. Drop down into the comments right now. Did the WNBA Players Union completely destroy their own leverage by exhausting the fans with their constant complaints and internal drama? Are the militant veterans intentionally trying to ruin the season and commit financial suicide simply because they deeply resent Caitlin Clark's absolute dominance? And if the WNBA forces a lockout and cancels the season, will you simply move on to watching the NBA and other sports, or will you actually wait for them to come back? Let me know your thoughts down below. If you want the unapologetic, aggressive truth about the cutthroat business of sports, the high-stakes leverage games played in corporate boardrooms, and the stories the mainstream sports media is absolutely terrified to cover, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this video everywhere. We do not do sanitized public relations narratives here. We expose the raw, bloody reality hiding in the shadows. Stay sharp. I will see you in the next one.